Europe in my backyard.
L'Europa in casa nostra.
Un'inchiesta radiofonica sulla politica di coesione europea.
Radijsko poročanje o evropski kohezijski politiki.
Europe in my backyard.
Radio reporting.
Radioreportage.
Az európai kohéziós politika nyomában.
Radio reporting.
Radioreportagen
on European cohesion policy.
über die europäische Kohäsionspolitik.
En la onda local de Andalucía comienza Europa en Casa.
For me to speak to you in English, but I mean, we have always something to begin, so it's a pleasure to be here with our 5 friends which are there. These are all media, local media from different countries of Europe. We have been working with them, like in EMA, we have been dealing with the European project, European media project, for about 10 years, 12 years now. And these people that are there, like, have been more or less the team, the core team, who we have been running all of this project that we have been talking about all year after year, no, from EMA. And so we think that it could be interesting in having their point of view and to make like some kind of presentation of how these different medias have been sustainable all along the decade, because some of them have like 50 years. I guess that your is 50 years, yeah. So these are really emblematic media in their country, and we're very happy to have them, to work with them, because we learn, from EMA we have been learning a lot of stuff together. And the thing is, as all of you, the majority of you are from media, from local media, we thought it could be interesting also to have the point of view of how works other local media in other countries, no? According to the law, to the regulation, to the help of the European Union and stuff like that. So I'm going to present now our friends now. Here on my right we have Ákos Cserháti. He's coming from Budapest, from Hungary. And is the leader of Civil Radio, a communitarian, emblematic communitarian radio in Budapest, in Hungary. Marco DIPUMA, which is coming from Italia, from Milan, from Radio Popolare, also one of the most well-known radio in Italia, in Milan, at least in Lombardy region. On my right, we have DOROTHEE MEYER, which is from Dublin, from Ireland, and she's running the project for a long time in NEAR FM, which is an organization, a cooperative, which deals with radio and TV, both of them. And on the far right, it's like on the left, there is VALENTINA, which is coming from radio student from Slovenia. And I think it's the oldest communitarian radio in Europe, no? Oh, you were telling that.
It's 53 years old, so I guess it's quite old, yeah.
So the deal was to talk a little bit about our radio and how they deal with to manage and to be so powerful in their country, and how did we manage to build this network all along the 10 years, no? But let's begin. I will give them the word so that they could present a little bit the media in which they are working, and then we'll go deeper in the conversation, right? Ákos, do you want to begin, please?
Yeah, thank you so much, and I'm really honored to be here and talk to you about Civil Radio, which is one of the first community radios in Hungary. And actually it was founded by community developers, and when they had a chance in the early 90s to go abroad, and they saw in Germany, in Austria, in France, community radios, smaller radios like ours, they got the idea to found such a radio there in Hungary. And still we have this special route that the community development is still very important, if not the most important thing in our life. And I don't want to say that the broadcast is a secondary thing or it's a side production, but still it's very important to us to bring together the different layers, different groups of the society, involve, invite, and include local communities, NGOs, initiatives. So it's still very important to us. Of course, we try to train people and reach a quality, but it's so a sense to us to give voice to the voiceless people, which is the general maxim of community radio movement, and invite everyone and give voice to those people who are not really represented in the mass media. And there they can be active part of the radio production, not just topics like the Romani people or poor people. So this is still one of the most important mission of our life.
Valentina, tell us a little bit about a radio student in Slovenia.
Yeah, so as I said, we're really old. It's a student community radio. We have quite a specific internal structure. It's really horizontal. We have different editorial departments, so department for radio announcers, for technicians, and then we have the management board. If you want any details, I can maybe explain later, but for now, for bigger picture, it's a bit similar to to civil radio. We're, let's say, famous for being the alternative, the independent, the autonomous radio station in Slovenia. We cover a lot of marginal topics, and we give space, so this inclusive media space to different marginalized groups. It can be some societal marginalized groups like LGBTQ community, or some activists like feminists, anarchists, but also some minorities, things like that. And we are also really famous. I have my colleague here, Sara, who's now head of the project office, but she joined the radio as a music journalist, and I think we're in this, let's say, in our alternative part of the society in Slovenia, we're probably most famous for introducing this alternative music, different genres, being also a bit weird in this sense to constantly produce some new trends. So yeah, maybe for start, that's it.
That would be the big picture, no?
Yeah, the big picture.
Yeah, great.
And for the details, I'm here if you're interested in anything.
On my right, we have Marco DIPUMA, who is this year is getting retired. So he has been, the last 20 years or 25 years of his life has to do with European project, especially in journalism, of course, because he was also, of course, a journalist doing radio show and stuff. But he has a quite wide experience in doing that. But before entering in that, can you present a little bit Radio Popolare? What are we talking about?
Okay, Radio Popolare is in Milano, is one of the first free radios in Italy. We born in 1976, and we came from the student movement at the time. And so we are one of the free independent radio. And we call that we are the left radio that represent the left people in Milano and Lombardia. We are a network, a radio network in Italy, in some other cities in Italy, and in Rome, in Torino. So we have about 20 other radios that are linked with us, and they broadcast our news. We are 40 people, full employed in the radio. 40 people, and then 32, 33 journalists, and the other are the technician or the people for an administration. We are, I think, a very community radio. We can call it a community radio in the sense that we represent a part of the citizen in Milano. We are their radio, if you want. So we give a lot of time to talk directly with the people, and we was the first radio that opened the microphone and to the people. Was not usually in Italy that. So the national radio was absolutely no people can talk directly with listeners. And we are a share company in the sense that there is a cooperative of the Radio Popolare workers that have the 36% of the shares, and the rest is in the hands of 22,000 people in Milano. That because we want to stay independent, and we don't want owners. The owners of the radio are the people that work in the radio and the people that listen the radio. That is the reason, because I call Radio Popolare as a community radio. It is a very strong community, so strong that 20,000 people give money every year. They give, the minimum is 90 euro per year, but there are someone that give us also 2,000, 3,000, it depends how rich is. In that sense, we also have some initiatives that have, we try to do something for the community. And for example, we organize.
But wait a minute before dealing with entering in the let's present the last radio. I know you.
Because I retreat, you know, I have no time.
Wait a minute, Marco. And to finish the first round, Dorothee. Well, working in EuroFM like for about 15 years now.
I'll be there 13 years. Yeah, nearly. Well, long enough time. Very diverse, very active role, and very active radio studio. And yeah, we are a community radio station, so we are like the third pillar next to public and commercial radio. So and we got established through a lot of lobbying by one of our local activists, Jack Byrne, to have that third pillar in place, to give a voice to the people and to the community, and to give a voice to people who are often underrepresented or misrepresented. So we use media for community development and for social justice. And like Radio Popolare, we are a co-op, so we also work in the shareholding system. So every radio producer with us, every radio maker, is also a member. Like we've introduced a membership model, and they also are a shareholding member. So it's one vote, one share, so every member is also a shareholder. We've been working with EMA and Radio Popolare, and also student and civil for many years. Like so, Europe in My Backyard is the current project that we're just finishing up. I remember my first project was Dynamo Effect. It was also about sustainability, so it's lovely to work back on a project within the field of climate change, climate action, and sustainability.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we are all in all the projects that we have been dealing with all around the 10 past years. There is always a network which is behind this radio. In the case of EMA, of course, EMA is itself a network, so it's not a deal of looking for other radio to widespread and to broadcast our content. But in other cases, what is your network? Do you have a network of radio there, or how does it work to gather this? Because in this Europe in My Backyard project, you had, I guess, 10 radios, for example. Normally you use the Radio Popolare network, Marco, and you have different panoramas. So do you have a network, for example, of radio there?
Yeah, and Hungary is a special case because the current government does not really prefer independent and free media, and eliminated most of the community radios and journals and so many things, televisions also. And it became so much more important to us to be together and to be in touch with each other and cooperate with each other. So therefore there's a network. Sometimes it's not really an official or formal network, but we are in touch with each other and try to support each other in such circumstances in which the free media is oppressed. And it became a necessary need in our case. And of course, a part of our survival is that the international network in which we are, that when we lost, for example, we lost our frequency, and we had many difficulties with maintaining the radio and operating the radio. And many friends from Germany, from Ireland, from many countries, they came to us that we are brothers or twins, friends of you, and we think that it's important to have community radios in Hungary, and they supported us. And it was emotionally so moving that so many radios from abroad and people who think that free media is important, they supported us. So therefore, there is a kind of formal network and an informal network, the network of friends. And it's so important to us because Hungary is isolated, partly because of our language and because of so many things. And to be the part of a network, it's much more important to us than maybe any of you.
Marco, what is the network? How does it work really? You share your content? It's on a daily basis, or how do you work?
No, the radio that's come in Popolare network, they are obliged to take our news, and they are free to choose other program. But we can have just, if I remember well, 6 hours per day to link with the other radios. Otherwise, we became national radio instead of local radio. And in Italy, that is a difference because we have to pay a lot of money if you are national to take the frequency and so on and so on. So, of course, the radio in our network, they share with us the view of the in order of, for example, social problems and worker problems and of course the climate and the environment problems. We are in the same, we have the same view, of course. I can say that all the radio are the left radio. And that, especially now in Italy, is important to have some information free and independent, and that can put a strong critical in the new government that we don't like.
Dorothy, how does it work with the sister radio? Because you are always involving in our project 10, 12 radio, but how do you manage to get together, to work together?
In Ireland, we're part of Radio Ireland, Radio Community Ireland. So it's a network of all the sister radio stations. There's over 20 community radio stations in Ireland. And we would share programs, like for example for this project, Europe in My Backyard, we would have disseminated the 20-part series on 10 of our sister community radio stations. So we would either send them to them or give them the login details that they can upload them onto their own PCs, computers, and then broadcast. So we also have events. We have the Failer, like it's a yearly event with all the community radio stations in Ireland. It's an event for training, where we upskill, where we do workshops, but also for networking, for getting to know other community radio stations from Dublin, like we have 4 in Dublin, but also and other urban areas, but also from the rural areas, like from the smaller towns or from the islands. And to exchange ideas, to support each other, etc. So it's really important to be part of a network within Ireland, like with our sister community radio stations, and then also in the European-wide context and the global context, like with AMARC, we're part of AMARC, the World Organization of Community Radios. We've signed up to the AMARC Charter, like all community radio stations, and like with. Maybe from a EU perspective, it's a great way for us to apply for funding, for joint funding, and then to either have learning experiences like we did a project, U-Edit Network, it was called. It was where we upskilled and teachers and youth workers to use radio in the classroom or in youth settings. So it was like then training other people or the development of radio programs. So yeah, it's invaluable within our own country, but also further afield, like outside.
And Valentina, How is it the
We
case
don't
of it?
have like a formal network of radios because it's only us and one other radio that has this national status of student program of special importance, something like that. But for example, in our radio, so Radio Student in Ljubljana in Slovenia, it's around 200 co-workers, and the other radio right now it's maybe like 5-10 to them. So it's only like a non-formal network of us, the second radio, and there's a third radio that is only web-based. So for example, for some bigger European projects, we invite both of them to join so they can also air the broadcasts that are produced as a part of the project, and we have some non-formal joint activities, like, I don't know, some more experienced radio announcers, radio technicians, or even journalists go to both radios to have some workshops with new contributors that are beginning in those radios and things like that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, and now let's go with the big question. The money. I mean, how can we be sustainable, like for after 20, 30, 40 years? I mean, it's a question for all of the majority of the local media community, local in general, in all Europe. And I guess that it could be interesting because, for example, in EMA, well, the majority, a huge amount of the financement is coming from project, right? Mm-hmm. But there are lots of different ways. I mean, to get according to the regulation, according to. So it would be maybe interesting in knowing if you only deal with European project or national one, or if you have another way to be sustainable from the financial point of view, no? Because I know that lots of friends that are here are coming from also local media, and maybe it could be interesting to expose a little bit what are your strategy about that, no? If you, well, Valentina, let's begin with you, for example.
Yeah, for us, as you say, it's also, I think it's around half of our yearly budget, it's projects. But it's not only European projects, so we have local projects from the municipality, we have projects on national level from Ministry of Culture, which is responsible for the media sector, and some European projects, but the thing is that our radio is not only radio, so really small share of this project is dedicated to radio program. We have projects applied in the youth sector, in culture, for organizing concerts. And in the youth sector, for example, I said before we have 200 regular contributors on and off, of course, but the thing is that we keep this amount nearly the same every year is because every year we have open calls to invite new young people, and 1 year, I was explaining it before to other colleagues, that 1 year around 300 young people applied to join the free training to become journalists in different areas, so politics, science, culture, university issues, music, and so also to become technicians, to become radio announcers. So we have this mass, let's say, that we can also use when we apply for projects. But what I wanted to highlight is that we're not only a radio, and that usually helps us to be successful with project applications. Okay, so maybe that's half of the budget. Then we have a functioning advertising department. But the thing is, I explained our nature and our mission before. Briefly, we don't accept, just any commercial. We're not gonna play something that is not in our alternative field of society, you know what I mean? We're gonna support with, so we're gonna let some non-institutional cultural organizations have commercials, air commercials on our radio, but we're not gonna air something that's commercially and ideologically really opposed to our mission. So that's advertising, and the thing is that we are established by the student organization of the university in Ljubljana, and they have to give us money every year. But this share is
decreasing.
Yeah, it's lower every year because there are a lot of, let's say, business people involved in student organization who think that, you know, speaking about alternative culture is not important, and they're, as you say, decreasing the amount every year. But yeah, it's a complicated structure. The budget is also complicated, a lot of different income sources. It's not just projects and government and that's it.
All right.
But yeah,
all right.
It's definitely not enough money for the amount of work and program. And
how many workers do you
we
have?
only have 7 employed persons.
7 employed.
And other like editors, journalists, technicians, radio announcers, it's all contributors. So student work, self-employed persons, and also this, we call it like author's contract, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Dorothee, tell us a little bit more about how have you been through these years and how do you get it?
So from a structural point of view, we have 8 full-time staff and 2 part-time staff. So we're quite a big community setting, community radio in Ireland. We're the biggest, so we're fortunate in that way that we were able to grow and expand over the years. We also have a television production house. But we don't broadcast our videos. We just put it online, and we broadcast through DCTV, Dublin Community Television. But to come back to the sources or the income, so we get some part of our wages through the CDETB, the City of Dublin Training Education Board, so the government basically. And the rest of the income for the other wages and the running of the project we have to make up through funding application, through grants, through through European partnerships. The BII, that's the Broadcasting Authority of Ireland, it's the the regulatory body. They have a call out every year where we can apply for specific programs. And they recently introduced 2 years ago a new scheme, a social benefits scheme, which acknowledges the work that often happens behind the scene, you know, like through community work, through training, through working with communities, maybe the less high quality focused programming, but more the bringing people into the studio, learning, like getting confidence through going on air. That those kind of projects are also funded, whereby we wouldn't have gotten funding for that beforehand. It was more for the high-end quality. One other thing which might be interesting to know is we work with community employment staff. Community employment would be people that are unemployed for 12 months or longer. So they can apply for a scheme with us. And so they get a placement for 19.5 hours each week. So that means like we train them, and it's in all different areas, from reception to sound technician, through presenting, through research. So they gain skills, they gain work experience, and hopefully then employment afterwards. But we then have people working with us in those fields. So that's very valuable for our model.
Great, great. Marco, tell us a little bit more about the different way you sustain Radio Popolare.
So that is a problem, because we have our budget, in the sense of our costs per year, are about 3,200,000 euro. And to cover all that money is not easy. We have 3 channels. One is our listeners. The other one is the advertising, private advertising, and the rest is from the government and some other initiatives that we can invent every year. But from the owners, we cover about the 60%. So we take from the owners 2 million euro per year. From advertising...
I don't understand. From the owners, what do you mean?
From the owners, sorry, from the listeners.
From the listeners?
Yeah, sorry.
You mean
from the listeners, we take 2 million euro per year.
But how does it work? I mean,
they give money.
All right.
They give money because they think that the radio is important and they want to continue. our project that is also their project. So is they are involved in our project so deeper that they are convinced to give us money. The minimum is 90 euro per year, but there are a lot of people that give more than that. And so we try to invent, to think some initiatives, to give some other reasons to give us money. Of course, the big reason is the radio. If the listeners want to have Radio Popolare, the listeners have to pay. We don't give nothing, just the radio. They have not benefits or other things, nothing at all. Just the radio. And then I think it's fantastic because it's not easy to do that. The advertising cover about the 30%. The 10 that rest to cover all the costs came from the government because we are, for the Italian law, we are a newspaper, because we have a lot of journalists, because we produce the news, and for that the government give money to the newspaper in Italy, all the newspapers that are in Italy, because it's nice to have a lot and a different approach, and a little part also from other initiatives, as for example the European projects, or the initiative that we have on the territory in Milano, but not just only in Milano. As I explained to my colleague before, to be sure to have this amount per year, we changed the way, in the sense that in the beginning the people have to come to the radio and give money. But in that sense, we was not so sure in order of how many money we can collect in the year. We changed now, and the people give the order to their bank to transfer every year the amount that they decide to give to the radio. In that sense, we can have a budget. We are more or less sure that we can cover all the costs year per year.
Okay. Agos, tell us a little bit, how do you sustain?
Yeah, well, I cannot give you the good recipe because our sustainability or our existence is a kind of magic. Actually, we follow the strategies, something always happens. And I remember that many times. I remember the first time when we broke down and we had no money in our bank account and we had no money in our pocket. And the volunteers, the program makers, just came to the studio, and I told them that, please go home, it's over. And they looked at me very surprised, and they said that I can see the microphones, we still have electricity, so I would like to make my program. And the next one came, and I told him or her that it's over, and they didn't want to believe it. And actually, I think one of the key of our existence is the enthusiastic and very dedicated volunteers. And I think it's not that complicated to achieve in a country where the people are really not satisfied, and they would like to use their voice to make changes. So that's one of the key elements. Beside that, of course, the friends whom I told you, that we always have a friend, someone who is coming to the radio and bring up with a project like you did, that here is a project, and it helped us. We have to mention that our annual budget is about 50,000 euros. So in a year, it's enough for the maintaining cost, for the electricity, for the heating, for the basic infrastructure. And we do not really spend or do not really employ people. We rely on the help and the enthusiastic work of our volunteers, for which we cannot be grateful enough. But this is the key element in our case.
Well, we are all here about, because we have been dealing with this Europe in My Backyard project now, and so it links us a little bit. Well, this is an example of how European Union can help to build like some kind of networks that could work, and thanks through these projects that we have been dealing with now. But if you will link that to the current project that this would be the final conference of the project, because you all know that it's almost finished, all the radio show have been done. I wanted to finish this debate so that we can all have a little rest and go to have a little cerveza. What would be the last conclusion or something that you want to highlight about the Europe in My Backyard project? Akos, as you were finishing, what do you want to highlight in this project that you have been dealing all together?
I think the greatest thing it was that we could change the people's mind based on the feedback of our audience. They got acquainted with the importance of the European Union, and in Hungary the Euroscepticism is quite high, and just introducing them the projects that were granted by the European Union and how many developments have been made, it opened up a little bit their mind and eyes that the European Union and the cooperation and being in such a network, it's very important. And I think this thing that a little bit we could change the mentality of those people who were very skeptical about the European Union.
Dorothy, what would be your, something you want to highlight about the project, something that, about this one?
For us, it was a great way because we often report on social issues and on the more social side, so it was a great way for us to highlight the sustainability and more environmental projects, sustainability, and it was great to also include videos and to shorten some of the interviews to smaller snippets to make them user-friendly for social media. I suppose just to look at different ways to diversify our dissemination and then also our models and how we work, and to kind of always look at new ways to engage new listeners and also our working manners.
Valentina,
I'm going to be honest, our journalists aren't really, as Akos, they're also really Eurosceptic and aren't really happy when we introduce them with European projects and let's talk about the achievements of European projects. But what I would emphasize is more about this, getting involved in European projects with the different community radios from different European countries, so we can actually get familiar with different structures and models. And I think if I look at it in a more abstract way, I think they are more important for networking, and I think that's also the way how they can help community media to survive, actually. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really nice that we can get involved in projects so our journalists can sometimes also be paid decent fees for their work and not, write news for €5. So yeah.
And Marco, the last word for you.
I think that we have to. Because the objective of the project is to improve the knowledge of the European fund, so the cohesion, the European cohesion policy is important. I think we have to do other projects, the same project, more than that, because we have to change the approach of the people in order of the Europe, because also in Italy, some people think that Europe is, the Union of Europe is not so nice. It's just they give some order that in order of how long could be orangine or how big have to do with the tomatoes. It's not that. It's not just that. Europe is an opportunity. I think we have to improve that knowledge. And we can improve with our media, of course. Especially, so the best way is what we done in that project, to show to the people how many Europe are in our normal life. If we do that, I think so. Our role is okay.
Yeah, what we were speaking about before. I mean, not only highways and big bridge, but also the children park and the...
No, for example, to show in that 20 radio show that we done for the project, we had the... One of the project was a little garden in a little square in Milano. The garden was for the children garden. So that children garden was realized with the money from Europe. So that means that the people that live around that square, if they know that their children can play in that garden because Europe, that is a way to convince that Europe is an opportunity.
Well, that will be the end of this little talk. I guess we are all tired after one day like that. So I would like to thank you, all of you, Valentina RAJAKOVIĆ from Radio Student, DOROTHEE MEYER from EMA-FM, DIPUMA from Radio Popolare, and Ako Sterati from Civil Radio. It has been a pleasure for us to be there, and well, I guess we'll have the possibility to talk together after tonight, better say. And thank you all, and well, we'll see us.
Thank you.